Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for a Battlefront 2 video that's been part of my upload plans for a good while now. But because I knew full well this video would be one that would take me a long time to finish, it's just been one I wasn't able to get around to. Well, I have literally no excuse now, so today we're going to be covering the content that DICE has cut from Battlefront 2. These are all things that were planned, in some cases announced or shown publicly, and then never made it to the final game, or at least they weren't playable in the final game, and still aren't to this day. Most of these things are in the files or were at one point before DICE completely removed them. It is of course totally possible that DICE will one day use some of these things for a future update, but as of right now they're just gathering dust. I gotta give props to a guy named Mophead. He is someone I've talked about on the channel multiple times before, as he has done some good work discovering a lot of these things over the years. Whenever a new update comes out and DICE updates the files, he is always checking for anything new or interesting. There is way too much cut content to fit all into just one video. In this upload I'm going to be covering all of the most interesting cut content, at least what I find to be the most fascinating, but if you guys do like this video and want to see a second installment covering everything else, let me know by leaving a thumbs up on this upload, and if you like this one, I'll do a second episode covering the rest. Before we jump into those, I do want to let you know that we do have a quick sponsor for today's video.
There's been no one for so long. Who are you?
I'm Ray.
Ray who?
Raid Shadow Legends.
I know guys, that was really stupid, but today's video is sponsored by, well, you know, it's Raid Shadow Legends, a game that has been marketed so aggressively over the past few months, it has transcended a marketing campaign and become a full-blown meme. But Raid reached out to me a couple months ago, and to be completely honest, working with Raid has been one of the best experiences I've had with any brand. Raid is a mobile RPG you can download for yourself completely free, and I honestly can recommend it. The game is fun, and despite being someone who really doesn't do much or really any mobile gaming, I have had a really good time playing Raid, and the graphics, well, they speak for themselves. They are seriously nice to look at, mobile game or not. Down below in the description there is a special link to download the game that will get you 100,000 silver, 10 mystery shards to get you started with new champions, 2 clan boss keys, plus another free champion, Adjudicator, all just for downloading the game, which you can do for free at no cost. Their battle pass is also active right now, so you can start earning a ton of free rewards just by completing daily and weekly challenges. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this video and just being pleasant to work with, and let's jump into today's upload. Let's start out with a reinforcement that was being worked on for launch but was ultimately not finished, that being the Rebel Pilot. These guys use an upgraded blurg as their primary blaster, and all 3 of their abilities are also found in the files. One of their abilities was a proton launcher, which was just an improved version of the officer's homing shot. Their second ability was an X-wing strike, and the version found in the files does not function, so this is clearly part of what wasn't finished. Their final ability was a protocol droid, which seems to mostly function like Krennic's droid from Battlefront 2015, dealing damage to enemies and possibly healing teammates, although the half-finished version in the files doesn't do that. I would not be surprised at all to see these guys make it into the game at some point, especially with a major original trilogy update on the horizon. I think there's a decent chance the Rebel Pilot makes an appearance, because the reinforcement selection in the OT era is kind of lacking, especially when you compare it to the prequels where you have so many great options. I guess we'll see. DICE really seems to like reusing whatever they can, so it's certainly a possibility. Just to further show how drastically the OT got shafted at launch, another potential reinforcement for the original trilogy era that was cut before the launch of the game is the Rebel Honor Guard, which has a fully finished and usable model in the files. I say potential reinforcement because literally the only thing in the files in reference to the Honor Guard is the finished and usable appearance. There's no information on what abilities they would have had or if it would have just been a trooper skin, although that's pretty unlikely considering in Battlefront 2015, Honor Guards were reinforcements, or at least the closest thing the first EA Battlefront had to reinforcements. They were called bodyguards, and you could only spawn in as a Rebel Honor Guard if there was a Leia in your lobby, and there was a limit of 2, I think. The gameplay you're watching just has random abilities attributed to the Honor Guard, plus the same blaster they used in the last game, so it's just completely randomized. That's not what they actually would have functioned like. It makes a lot of sense to see 2 cut original trilogy reinforcements in the files, especially when you consider just how few reinforcements there were for that era, especially at launch. I mean, literally all there were the Aerials, plus the Death Trooper and the Wookiee Warrior. That was it. Maybe they'll do something with the Rebel Honor Guard. I mean, any new reinforcements are more than welcome by me, and they definitely seem to be a bit easier for DICE to make compared to Heroes. Another piece of cut content is a very early version of the ARC Trooper, a unit that was planned for launch but wasn't finished in time, just like the other 2. They were supposed to be a part of the Sentinel class, which ended up being completely scrapped. In their earliest versions, they had an ability called the Death Ray, which exists in the files in a semi-functioning form. This weapon looks pretty cool, you can't run with it or anything like that, it really restricts your mobility down to just about nothing, and I have no idea what the inspiration is. I don't remember an ARC Trooper ever using anything like this, but it looks extremely powerful. What it really reminds me of, other than the actual Death Ray on the Death Star of course, is the Geonosian beam weapon from Republic Commando. The original version of the ARC Trooper was also supposed to have an ability called the Back to Shield, which I imagine was some sort of healing protective bubble, or maybe an ability that regenerated health and gave the trooper some form of damage reduction. As I'm sure you guys are fully aware, we eventually did get the ARC Trooper as a Battlefront II reinforcement, although they don't have anything resembling a Back to Shield or a Death Ray, and they're a part of the Infiltrator class, not the Sentinel. Moving on from the cut reinforcements, let's talk about a map that was cut, that being the Heroes vs. Villains version of Crate. This mostly completed map has been in the files since January of 2018, has a unique sunset theme that is much different from the Galactic Assault version, and was even officially announced at one point. DICE told us over 2 years ago that Crate was to be released in HVV, and it just didn't happen. This is a piece of content that is very likely to eventually be officially released, as DICE recently updated the files a couple of months back and included some newly recorded droid announcer lines for this specific map in HVV.
Do you like your catastrophes with a dash of salt? Then deactivate those empathy protocols because today is your lucky day. Red soil or red blood? Why choose when our fighters will provide an abundance of both to satisfy your morbid fascinations? Abandoned bases meet fresh devastation. There'll be no shortage of salt in the wounds for today's sore losers. Let the painful demises begin.
The most recent announcement for next month's update actually confirmed that HVV would be getting multiple new locations in April, and I would not be surprised at all if Crate is one of those locations. I mean, this map is pretty much ready to go other than some lighting issues. There is also recorded dialogue for a co-op version of Crate in the files as well, which makes it all the more likely that Crate is eventually added to that mode too.
Soldiers, we have been made aware of a ragged resistance band holding out on Crate. Our objective is to eliminate them and secure the area.
The First Order will throw everything they have at us, but with the Force as our ally, we'll prevail.
I fail to understand how the Resistance riffraff managed to withstand our attack. We are clearly lacking in both discipline and resolve. Both shall be rectified.
We also have some pretty neat information from a PowerPoint presentation that was given at the Game Developers Conference a few years back, where DICE included a few slides discussing the physics of Battlefront II. In those slides were a few short video clips which gave us a glimpse at one feature that was toned down significantly before the game was launched, and also gave us a brief look at a returning hero from Battlefront 2015 who didn't end up making it to the actual game. The feature I mentioned is droid dismemberment, which was way more intense in the original version of BF2. Body parts you aimed at would actually be shot off, grenades would completely blow apart droids, and lightsabers would pretty much split them in half. Nowadays, droids just kind of fall over when they die. Occasionally you'll see a random arm separate from the droid's main body, but it's nothing like DICE clearly intended at one point. I imagine it caused a ton of lag, which is why it was toned down, but it certainly looks really great. At this same conference, in the same PowerPoint presentation, they also showcased an early version of Battlefront II Luke, ragdolling a certain hero who never made it into the base game. As you guys can see on screen, the hero in question is Greedo, and the developer gave a bit of context to this clip with some text on the PowerPoint slide. He says, when it came to Battlefront II, we wanted to reuse the work we did on BF1. However, our animation director had an interesting challenge. The game was going to have more heroes than the first, and so if Luke was going to do a force push on Greedo would have to get back up, but we wanted the interaction to be ragdoll driven. What he's talking about here is in Battlefront 2015, when you force pushed a hero, they didn't actually get pushed. They just kind of stagger like they were hit with a frying pan. The whole ragdoll thing was completely new to Battlefront 2, and as you can see in this clip, they even have ragdoll and recovery animations for Greedo. From what the developer has said about wanting to reuse as much as they could in terms of hero assets from Battlefront 2015, I imagine at one point DICE intended to bring all of the Battlefront 2015 heroes forward to Battlefront 2 and then add some from the other eras. I mean, it really doesn't make any sense to make a sequel and then remove heroes, but because we know Battlefront 2 was rushed out the door just to meet that launch deadline, I'm sure heroes like Greedo, Nine Nub, and Dengar were the first to get cut, so it's likely they didn't even make it very far into development. From day one, DICE had assets from Grievous and references to Obi-Wan in the files, but as we know, those two weren't ready in time either. It's interesting to note that Greedo is dual-wielding in this clip. I'm sure those wouldn't have been his final weapons, but it is cool to see they were working on that feature way before launch. I mean, we didn't even see a unit that could dual-wield until the ARC Trooper. Another really cool piece of cut content is the Back-to-Bomb, which was apparently intended to make a return from Battlefront 2015, although this version works completely differently from that version. The version in the files of Battlefront 2, which seems to be fully functional, also seems to be far less powerful than Battlefront 2015's. In the last game, you would throw your Back-to-Bomb at your feet, and it would instantaneously heal you and all nearby teammates back to full, plus an extra 30 HP on top of that. It would also heal heroes a bit and could overheal them as well, and the extra health was permanent until you took damage. It did not wear off ever. The Battlefront 2 version seems to have been toned way down. It does not detonate instantly at your feet, and when it does detonate, it only heals you at 10 HP per second. It seems DICE eventually decided against including the Back-to-Bomb whatsoever, although the officer has Battle Command, which is kind of similar in functionality. The final thing I want to cover today is a handful of hero dialogue that was ultimately cut, but references characters that we still don't have in-game. I have no idea if that's the reason they were cut, because they reference certain characters, but dialogue exists that references Ventress, Jango Fett, and Jabba the Hutt, although I don't think we're ever getting a Jabba the Hutt hero in Battlefront 2. If that happens, I'm all for it. I just don't think it's particularly likely. Either way, I will play those quotes for you right now.
Did you know a woman named Ventress?
No.
Boba Fett. Dangerous was his father.
You have spoken to the Hutts.
I don't really know why those quotes in particular were cut. I'm pretty sure Boba references Jango in-game already, but those currently are just sitting in the files completely unused. There's a bunch of other hero quotes in the files for Luke, Anakin, Dooku, Han, Rey, Kylo Ren, and others that were also cut and just never showed up, and I'll play those for you right now if you're interested.
A dark path we walk.
I know. There's no other way out.
Not meant for war or Jedi.
One of the first things you taught me.
The Force guides your weapon. Good.
I'm trying, Master Yoda.
Long has it been since I fought with a student.
I'll try not to disappoint you.
No joy in this victory. We shall find.
Too many killed on both sides. Master Yoda, I'm glad you're here.
Only because I am needed.
You're not bad with the lightsaber.
Adequate, I am.
Tell me, is this training?
My training? No. Always training, the universe is.
Can you sense what's coming?
Clouded is my vision.
Master Yoda, are you all right?
Old am I, but not feeble. Emperor Sidious, should I call you?
I am beyond names and titles. Where did you earn your lightsaber?
That is not your concern.
Oh, you're not half bad at this.
Was that supposed to be a compliment?
Be careful with that lightsaber, all right?
Get behind me! I'm taking lead.
And I thought I was reckless.
Leave this battle or die. You cannot stop our victory. The Supreme Leader is wise. You chose your moment poorly. Run. Run, Solo. Not to you. Do not speak of the Supreme Leader. You have no choice. She turned on her father too. No. I am a Knight of Ren.
The bounty hunter, Boba Fett. For Boba Fett, we must prepare. Boba Fett, beware. Take care. Boba Fett approaches. Bosk, the bounty hunter. A ruthless hunter, Bosk is. Bosk approaches. His poisons, beware. Bosk, is it? The bounty hunter Bosk, I will intercept.
That is mostly everything for cut hero quotes, although there is one more hero with cut dialogue, although in this case the reason it was cut is pretty obvious. What I'm referring to is the Grievous dialogue that was recorded for a potential Padme and Ahsoka update. Ben has come out and said these lines were recorded just in case, which I'm sure is true, but in the files there are lines that have Grievous talking directly to both Padme and Ahsoka. You have likely heard these by now, but if not, I will play them for you.
Ah, the Padawan! Skywalker's apprentice! So many lightsabers to add to my collection! Tano! So it is to be a rematch then! Your master is not here to save you now! Senator Amidala, I presume. Oh, I've never killed a queen before. I will laugh as Naboo mourns your death. You only prolong the inevitable, Senator. This is for the malevolence.
I'm still really holding out hope we eventually get Ahsoka in particular, although I think Padme could be fun too, mostly because it's just been so long since we've had a new blaster hero, and also I think the interactions between someone like Padme and Anakin, or really any of the prequel heroes, would be really interesting. One of the most fun things about new heroes is hearing all of the fresh dialogue and hero interactions. I also think just updating the game with all of those cut interactions would do a lot to freshen up HVV, because at this point I've heard every little interaction a million times, so any new quotes would really be appreciated. Well guys, that is going to wrap up today's video. This was all of the cut content I found to be the most interesting, although there is more I could cover in a future video or two, so if you'd like another video like this one, just let me know. If you guys did enjoy this one, I could make a second episode or maybe even a third. There is quite a bit more to cover. If you are new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. I hope you are all staying safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.